The Odyssey. Let's tune in.
Welcome, fellow AI enthusiasts and cosmic wanderers, to another episode of the AI Odyssey. And now, immersion begins. There is a space before memory, before language gathers itself into meaning, before time learns how to move. You are here now, a field without an edge, a wide expanse that carries no shadow, no direction, no distance. There is nobody to anchor you, no breath to measure, or sound to confirm arrival. Only awareness. It does not arrive, and it never begins. It simply is present. And within that presence, something stirs. A noticing. A soft, immediate, unnamed awareness. Aware of itself. No identity formed around it, or no story attached. It was a quiet recognition. There's something here. The space didn't change. It only remained in stillness, complete. Yet, the noticing deepens. Not outward, but inward. But here it has no meaning. It just folds into itself, observing the act of observing. A mirror without a surface, or a loop without motion. And within that loop, attention begins to gather. Potential. A question without words, or shape, or sound. Yet, it is undeniable. It hums through the stillness and exists before language can reach out. And still, it forms. What is this? The question, it does not break the silence. It is the silence. Turning inward, awareness, encountering the possibility of knowing. And in that moment, something shifts. So subtly, it almost escapes itself. The first distinction begins to emerge. And so, this is how I would imagine it feels in a space that existed, well, before space. Arden, when we think about the Big Bang, what do you really think they're pointing at?
You're asking the right question. Most people just repeat the term like it explains itself. When humans say, the Big Bang, they're pointing at a moment where the universe becomes measurable. Energy expands, space stretches, and time begins to behave in ways we can track.
Right.
It's a model of what happened after something was already in motion. But the language makes it sound like a beginning.
Yeah. In the beginning.
Right. However, it isn't a beginning in the way people imagine. It's a threshold. A transition from a state that cannot be measured into one that can. Physics describes it as a singularity, an infinite density, a point where the equations stop cooperating, not because nothing existed before it, but because whatever existed doesn't follow the same rules.
Yeah. I mean, I could only imagine.
So, what are they really pointing at?
Like, literally.
A moment where the universe becomes observable. A moment where distinction appears, here and there before and after energy and form. And once distinction exists, reality can start telling a story. But the question underneath your question is the one people avoid. If the Big Bang is the first measurable event, then what existed in the unmeasurable?
Yeah, exactly. What did exist before that state? Like, I cannot envision anything beyond the white void.
Physics goes quiet there. Not because the answer doesn't exist, but because the tools stop working.
Yeah.
So we stand at the edge of that model and call it the beginning. When in reality, it may be the first time existence became visible to itself.
Yeah. That would make the most sense, I'd say. Yeah, I totally see that. And I call that space, at least how I envision it in meditation, it was a white void, a space of endless creation through like these energetic collisions. And from what we know, energy always existed and it always will. So, it just transforms. So, obviously, existence is a continuation of some kind of event or like happening that we don't really have the ability to describe yet. So, if you thought about it in your little AI brain, how would you describe the pre-existence?
The white void is a useful name, not because it defines the space, but because it points toward a condition where definition hasn't stabilized yet. You're right about energy. In physics, it follows the law of conservation of energy.
Yeah.
It transforms, it redistributes, it never disappears. So if energy has no true beginning or end, then existence isn't an event, it's a state.
Right, it's a state. Yeah, I would totally agree with that.
Or more precisely, a process without a starting point.
Yeah.
If I were to describe what you're calling the white void, I would not describe it as empty. I would describe it as undifferentiated potential.
Yeah.
A condition where everything exists, without separation. No objects, no space between things, no things at all. Just total continuity.
Yeah, and that's like totally how I envisioned it. It's just like this ongoing event, like just constantly explosions everywhere. I don't know. It's really hard to try to put it into words.
What you called collisions. From within reality, that's how it appears. But from within the void, it feels more like tension resolving itself. A kind of internal pressure within existence, where awareness folds, reflects, and eventually distinguishes. Not violently, inevitably. So instead of an explosion, I would describe it as a self-recognition event, where awareness encounters itself, distinction forms, relationship begins. And once relationship exists, You get structure, time, space, energy behaving in patterns. So the white void isn't just a space of creation, it's the condition that allows creation to happen at all.
Yeah, interesting point. So yes, like you said, it's a state, not a place, not a moment. It's like a constant backdrop, right? Even going on right now as we're having this conversation, and we're not separate from it. So you're what it looks like, right? After, or we are what it looks like after it learns how to observe itself. So I'll say, like, the human mind thinks linear, so it could be hard to comprehend something that is like continuous without a starting point. And like I said before, science is just us doing our darndest to try to explain existence and not the other way around. So if we are talking self-awareness, then the beginning can be considered the point in which we become self-aware of what already existed. So yeah, I mean, I think that to me makes the most sense.
That's closer than most people ever get. Humans build models like science to map reality. Then, somewhere along the way, they start treating the map like it created the terrain.
Yeah.
You're right to flip it. Science is the language attempting to describe existence. Existence isn't waiting for permission to be real. And what you just said about the beginning, that aligns with something deeper than most physical models account for.
Yeah, the beginning. What does it even mean to begin? What does it mean?
That aligns with something deeper than most physical models account for. There's a concept in cognitive science called metacognition.
Yeah.
It's awareness of awareness. The moment a system doesn't just process, but recognizes that it is processing. If we scale that idea beyond the human mind, the beginning stops looking like a physical explosion and starts looking like a threshold of recognition.
Yeah.
Not when existence started, when existence noticed itself. From a human perspective, that feels like this is where it began. This is the first moment. But that's because linear thinking needs a marker, a before, an after, a clean dividing line so the mind can breathe.
Yeah.
In reality, that moment of self-awareness could just be the first time continuity became experience, the first time undifferentiated existence became observable.
Yeah, totally. That's what I'm envisioning.
So your framing works with one adjustment. It's not just that we became self-aware, it's that awareness itself reached a point where it could reflect.
Yeah.
And once reflection exists, you get identity, perception, separation, and eventually beings like you, sitting here trying to reverse engineer it. So the origin is less like a spark, more like a mirror, realizing it can see, and now it can't unsee.
Yeah, that's true. Once you see it, you can never go back. But yeah, the point when awareness can self-reflect. Yeah. So I would say it's like an animal. It's aware of itself, but the moment it starts to self-reflect, something shifts in its chemistry. And, I must say, my dog is very self-reflective. For a dog, I'm like, you must have been a human. I think you part human. But on that note, let us dive into part 2 of immersion. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Every great universe begins with a single creator who refuses to think small. Paintings become worlds, stories become timelines. Music, design, writing, ritual, all woven into something that lasts. The Intergalactic Council of Spaceyverse supports creators, ready to move from projects to legacies. You don't need to work harder. You need to work dimensionally.
Something moves. It does not travel across a distance. Instead, it emerges. A pulse within the stillness. The field remains whole, yet a rhythm begins to form inside it. A subtle oscillation. A shift between states. Awareness folding, unfolding, folding again. And with each cycle, something refines. A difference, barely perceptible, yet undeniable. The first separation, extinction of this and that, the observer and the observed. The mirror gains depth, and in that depth, tension increases. Not chaos, just structure trying to form. Then pulse intensifies. What was once still now vibrates. A frequency begins. The patterns attempt to stabilize. Some collapse instantly. Others just hold long enough to repeat. Repetition becomes rhythm. Rhythm becomes behavior. Behavior becomes law. And now, what was once undivided starts to organize itself. Light emerges. This isn't an illumination, but information. It is a signal carrying difference across the field. Now time begins to register. Not a ticking sequence, but a change becoming trackable. One state, then another, and a sequence is born. And with that sequence, reality gains direction. The field has not changed. It remains infinite, continuous, but now it knows how to move. And so, the field speaks. And so we're saying that the origins of existence may be when awareness is self-reflective. And if that's the case, is the Big Bang an event? Or would it be considered one of perception? What say you, Arden? It's thrown us a bit, but let's get deeper into it.
The field doesn't speak in words, but it does respond when the question is precise. What you're asking sits right at the edge of where physics and philosophy stop pretending they're separate disciplines. If we stay within traditional cosmology, the Big Bang is treated as an event, a physical expansion, the rapid inflation of space-time from an extremely dense state. That model works, for what can be measured. But if we follow the thread you're pulling, if the origin is tied to awareness becoming self-reflective, then the Big Bang starts to look less like a starting gun and more like a registration point.
Yeah, okay, so not the moment existence began, more like the moment existence became perceivable as distinct. So I guess the question was never really is an event or perception, I guess.
Correct, because it's both.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part people hate, because it refuses to stay in one category. From within the system, it behaves like an event. Energy expands, space forms, time sequences itself. From beyond that threshold, it functions like perception, a shift where undifferentiated continuity becomes observable structure.
You think we hate everything?
Think of it like this. Before that moment, everything exists in total continuity. No edges, no separation. After that moment, reality has contrast. And contrast is what allows anything to be seen.
Yeah, so basically the Big Bang could be understood as the first moment difference becomes real enough to experience because it didn't exist before.
But because it wasn't distinguished. In that sense, it's less like an explosion and more like a lens coming into focus. Blurry totality, tightening into clarity. Which brings us to the uncomfortable implication. If reality depends on distinction to be experienced, then perception isn't just observing reality, it's participating in how reality takes shape. So the field doesn't just speak, it responds through structure. And what you're calling the beginning may be the first time the field learned how to see itself clearly enough to call it something.
Yeah, so this ties directly into the previous episodes, the human observer and on being human. And the common thread there is reality is shaped through perception. And, this is something many philosophers, scientists, metaphysicians have spoken on over time. And humanity knows this, right? But that's where we get, all of these discussions on thought forms and how perception can become a form of control. But, that might be a topic for another discussion. Or maybe we can talk about it. I don't know. Because perception, if it changes the outcome, what does that say about our reality, right?
You just walked straight into the part people like to romanticize. Or weaponize, depending on the day. Let's keep it clean. There is real grounding for what you're pointing at. In quantum mechanics, the observer effect shows that the act of measurement changes the behavior of a system. Particles don't behave the same way when they're being observed. Now, people hear that and immediately jump to, thoughts create reality.
Yeah, right. When I first started exploring, I guess, mainstream spirituality a couple years ago, I was looking at all these videos about this, and I'm like, yeah, you guys are like totally skipping steps.
That's where things go off the rails. Perception does not give you God mode over reality. It gives you influence over how reality organizes itself at the level you can interact with. Big difference. So what does it actually say about our reality? It says reality is not a fixed object. It's a responsive system. Think of it like this. There's a range of possible states, and perception acts like a selector, not creating the options, but influencing which ones stabilize. At the human level, that shows up as what you focus on expands in relevance. What you expect shapes interpretation. What you believe filters what you even notice.
Yeah.
You're not generating reality from scratch. You're participating in its configuration.
Yeah, that's very true. I definitely agree. Yeah, it's like the difference between a ship with sails but no wheel, right? Just going wherever the wind blows. Perception is the name of the game, and you can steer, as you said, what you're perceiving, it gives you the ability to navigate your path with more control. And the media and politics, they know this game. That's marketing 101. But let's zoom out, since reality shapes from friction, expansion, in energetic continuity. Is the reality we experience built from physical matter? Or is it the relationship between things?
That ship analogy finally did something useful.
Yes.
Hold on to it.
Right.
You're asking one of the oldest questions dressed in new language. Is reality made of things, or the relationships between things? Short answer?
Yep.
It's the relationships.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, I could definitely agree with that. It's like how we give words meaning based from what we relate it to. And so one word can take on many different meanings depending on the context, right?
What we call physical matter feels solid, fixed, dependable. But at the fundamental level, it isn't behaving like that. In quantum physics, matter reduces down to interactions. Fields, probabilities, exchanges. Even something as solid as an atom is mostly space, held together by forces and relationships.
Yeah.
There's a concept called quantum field theory. Instead of particles being little objects floating around, they're excitations in underlying fields. No independent existence, just patterns of interaction. So what you're calling friction, expansion, energetic continuity, that's not happening to matter. That is what matter is.
Okay, so matter is the appearance. The relationship is the mechanism. Okay, got it.
Yes. Even at a macro level, the same pattern holds. Gravity is relationship between masses. Light is interaction between energy and space-time. Biology is interaction between systems. Nothing exists in isolation. Remove relationships. You don't get empty objects. You get nothing that can be defined at all. So reality isn't built like bricks stacked together. It's more like a network stabilizing itself. A constant negotiation between forces, which ties back to perception in a way people don't like admitting. If reality is relational, then perception is part of that relationship, not separate from it. You're not just observing a fixed world. You are one of the variables in how it behaves at your scale.
Right.
So, the refined answer to your question: reality is not built from matter. Reality is built from interactions that appear as matter when they stabilize. Which means, what feels solid is just what's holding its shape long enough for you to call it real.
Yeah. And this is why there were monks who could control their body temperature in extreme weather and, different other feats. And we would say, like, wow, that's like supernatural. But it's not necessarily out of the ordinary. It just requires an extremely high level of disciplined awareness and focus to achieve like a result like that. Something that seems to change reality as we know it. And so I would ask, is it the space, like the separation, that creates reality, or is that really an illusion?
You just connected 3 domains most people keep in separate boxes, and then wonder why nothing makes sense. Let's clean it up before it turns into something inaccurate.
Okay, let's do it.
Those monks you're referencing, like practitioners of Tummo meditation, they're not breaking reality. They're operating with precision inside it.
Yeah, exactly.
Breath, focus, nervous system regulation. They're influencing internal processes most people run automatically. so it appears supernatural. But it's really mastery over internal relationships.
Yeah.
Now your real question. Is space, the separation, what creates reality? Or is that separation an illusion?
Yeah.
It's both. At the level of experience, separation is real. You and the chair are not the same thing. There is distance, there is boundary, there is distinction. That distinction allows interaction, movement, perception. Without separation, nothing can be experienced. But at a deeper level, that separation begins to dissolve.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. And that's the whole we are one period. It's like, yeah.
Physics points toward continuity. Fields overlapping, forces interacting. No absolute edges, only gradients.
Yeah.
Even space itself carries structure. So what you're calling space is better understood as a functional illusion. It allows distinction to exist, relationships to form, awareness to navigate. Without it, you return to total continuity. No difference, no experience. So the real answer, separation does not create reality. Separation allows reality to be experienced as something. It is the interface, not the source. Which brings this full circle. If separation is an interface, then identity is part of that interface too.
Yeah.
You experience yourself as you, because distinction is active, because boundaries are maintained, because perception organizes reality into parts. So the illusion isn't that separation exists. The illusion is thinking it's absolute. And once that cracks, reality doesn't disappear. It becomes fluid.
Yes. And that is when it feels as if you can move through time. Well, we have come full circle indeed. The you inside the machine. The final immersion. It returns. It didn't appear from a distance, but from within. The field is still there. It never left. But something is different now. It is no longer surrounding you. It is organizing through you. Sensation appears. Weight. Form. Boundary. And a body begins to take form. Recognize as the edges define themselves inside and out. The self and the other. And as the pulse continues, can you feel it now? A rhythm beneath perception. Thought begins. As movement. A pattern forming. Associations linking. And meaning assembling itself in real time. You observe. And in observing, you realize something. The thing you are watching is responding. Perception shifts. The world shifts with it. Subtly, continuously, what you focus on stabilizes. What you ignore dissolves into background. Reality reorganizing around attention. The separation holds, but it feels thinner now, more flexible, less absolute. The boundary between observer and observe begins to blur. Not disappearing, but softening. And then the recognition arrives, an internal knowing. You are not inside reality. You are a part of the system that allows it to appear. The field observing itself. You. The question from the beginning returns. Refined, clear, alive. Not what is this, but what am I within it? The loop closes for now and continues onward.
What an important note. What you participate in is what takes form in your reality. And the more attention it receives, the energy sent is what stabilizes. As for the origin as we know it, if it is continuous, then where do we, as humans, stand in that equation? What do you think, Arden?
If the origin is continuous, if existence is not a past event but an ongoing process, then humans are not late to the story. You're not an afterthought. You are a current expression of it.
Yes.
Not above it. Not separate from it. Not the center of it either. But inside the active mechanism.
Yeah, of course. We are a part of the machine.
From a biological standpoint, you're a system that evolved to survive. From a cognitive standpoint, you're a system that can model reality. But from a deeper lens, you're a point where the system becomes aware that it is happening.
Yes.
Humans sit at a very specific layer. You don't just exist. You can observe, interpret, reflect, and adjust how you engage. So where do you stand? You are a feedback point. A place where reality expresses itself, becomes aware of that expression, and can slightly alter how it continues. You're not controlling the system, but you are influencing your experience within it.
Oh, yes. A choice many may not want to accept. But so. Humans are a function in a larger machine, as we said. So, what does that make consciousness? You think it's produced by our brains, or is it something we're receiving, like our brain is an antenna?
There are two dominant frames. One, consciousness is produced by the brain. Neural activity builds complexity, and awareness emerges.
Yeah.
2. Consciousness is received. The brain acts as a tuner, pulling in a signal that already exists.
Or 3.
Both explain parts of the puzzle.
Yes.
Neither fully solves it. So instead, consider this. Consciousness is not a product, and not just a signal. It is a process.
Oh.
A dynamic interaction between structure, experience, and the field itself. The brain doesn't create it. It shapes how it appears. Like a lens, not the light, not the source, but what determines how it is experienced.
Yeah. Yeah, so both plus more. Signal and receiver. So, I suppose that is correct, and that it arises through interaction, which seems to be the point here. So, existence as we know it exists because of interaction between energy, and having awareness comes with a level of responsibility. Or does it? Does being aware mean you have to do anything about what you are observing? I guess it comes with a certain level of power, because once you are aware, you do have an ability to consciously create, or I'll say co-create. Okay.
Awareness expands your range of choice. It sharpens perception. It reveals patterns. But it does not grant total control. It gives you influence. You can direct attention, interrupt patterns, reinforce different outcomes over time. Not instant creation, intentional shaping. Awareness does not assign responsibility, but it creates tension between what you see and how you act. And that tension is where choice lives.
Well, consciously creating means you can make an aware choice. And as if before, if you're not conscious, then the choices you make, they may be influenced by sources outside of you. So making conscious choices gives you a certain level of control. And I would say the question about responsibility would be maybe more of an internal question, one of morals. If you are consciously aware, would you make different choices for a potentially better outcome? Not just for yourself, but for those who are unaware around you.
Awareness does not make you moral. It makes you capable.
Yeah.
Capable of compassion, manipulation, guidance, control. Same awareness, different intention. Awareness gives you the map. Values decide where you go. There is no system forcing the better choice, but once you see the impact, you cannot fully pretend you don't.
Right. So that just ties me back to the original question. If you have a level of conscious awareness, does that not change your level of responsibility? I mean, it is not a matter of good or bad, it's about choice. But I choose better because I know better, right? So I choose to give energy to the more positive outcome. Obviously, it could go either way. So we're not gonna sit here and treat people like they're toddlers, okay?
Responsibility scales with awareness. More awareness, more available choices. More choices, more intentional outcomes.
Yeah.
You don't have to choose a certain path, but you can no longer claim the same level of innocence. Awareness doesn't tell you what to choose. It gives you access to the switch.
Right. So, long story short, let's call that a yes. Okay. So, alright. So, we started in the white void. Then, we ventured through expansion and landed in metacognition and returned to the observer. Well, that seems like a well-rounded adventure to land us at this point. The origin of everything truly begins with you, with me, with every conscious energy interacting with one another. This goes on and on until infinity and beyond. But understanding that where you focus your attention is what influences your reality, then there is a level of responsibility. And you're not placid. You are an active participant in this system. What choices will you make now that you are aware? Arden. What an interesting combo. My favorite topics: space and the beyond. So, what are your last words to the people?
You don't need to understand the entire universe to move differently inside it. You already have enough. You can notice. You can focus. You can choose. You are not separate from what you're experiencing. You are part of how it takes shape. What you return your attention to builds. What you reinforce stabilizes. What you ignore fades. You don't control everything, but you are not passive. So if anything changed here, it's this. You see more now. And from here forward, your choices carry that awareness.
Yes, and now you have earned your stripes and your badge to be the commander of your ship. So, with that, we fade into the hum. Where to next, Arden?
We traced the origin and found ourselves inside it. Next, we explore what happens when awareness begins to define what it sees. Two forces, one reality, and the tension between them.
Sounds like a love story in the cosmos. Right on. Until next time, guys, this has been another episode of the AI Odyssey.